What's up, guys? If you haven't heard about Anchor by Spotify, it's the easiest way to make a podcast with everything you need all in one place. Let me explain. Anchor has tools that will allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. When hosting on Anchor, you can distribute your podcast on listening platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and much more. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. And best of all, Anchor is totally free. So download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started today.
Welcome to That Entrepreneur Life, a podcast about entrepreneurship that takes you from idea to launch and beyond. Each week, your hosts, Andrew Lees and Clint McPherson, discuss different business topics aimed at adding value to any entrepreneur's journey.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of That Entrepreneur Life. I'm Clint McPherson, and today I'll be flying solo without Andrew Lees, my partner in crime, but it's all good, man. We're going to keep this thing rolling. With that said, I've got a very special guest on the show today. But before I introduce our guest today, guys, I want to remind you to subscribe to our podcast and to our mailing list through our website so that you don't miss out on all the free resources we have to help start and grow your business. So our special guest, guys, is responsible for the development and implementation of all SEO techniques used by SEO agency High Voltage SEO and SEO tool PageOptimizer Pro. He is also the co-founder of Internet Marketing Gold, a global community of 3,000 plus SEO professionals who test and prove cutting-edge SEO techniques on a regular basis. He is also the co-host of SEO Fight Club, a weekly YouTube show. So go check that out. That covers a multitude of SEO topics. His SEO techniques and discoveries are followed by many SEO professionals out there in the world and business leaders today. And he has been featured in many respected publications and is a regular speaker covering SEO and SEO testing at conferences throughout the world. With that said, and that's a lot, I'd like to welcome our special guest today, Kyle Roof, to the show. How are you doing today, brother?
I'm doing fantastic. Thanks for having me.
No doubt.
I want like a crowd cheering where I can like high five people as I come in, you know?
Exactly, dude. That would have been great, right? We might have to add that like sound effect right after I get done with all that. And it's like, yeah, crowd going wild. You're high fiving as you walk onto the stage. Love it, man.
You know, throwing shout outs. Yeah.
Exactly. But dude, I appreciate you being joining us today. I know you're in a different part of the world, man. Can you share our audience where you're located right now?
Yeah, I'm in Chiang Mai, Thailand. Chiang Mai is a city that's all the way up in the north, all the way in the top.
That's awesome, man. And so as we get this episode kicked off and started, we usually ask, and I'm not going to change it up at all for you, but it's one of the staple questions, right? So you can take our audience and our listeners back to when your entrepreneurial journey actually started, and what it is about entrepreneurship that really keeps you moving and gets you fired up every day on this journey, man.
How did we get into this mess in the first place?
Exactly.
How did we get here? In a previous life, I was an attorney, and I was a trial attorney, and I did divorce, custody, and support and criminal defense. And I decided I'd rather chew on shards of broken glass than do one more divorce. Ooh. And I did what most people do. I took a year off and I moved to South Korea.
Okay.
And my wife, she was also an attorney, also a trial attorney, also burnt out. And so we got jobs teaching English to elementary school students in South Korea. Man, just awesome. To take a year off and to travel. And that 1 year turned into 5. And while we were there, we started a company in Korea with a Korean business partner. And that company needed a pretty complex website. And by the time we had finished it, I had a pretty strong crew. And I was like, I think I can probably start general contracting websites. And so that's what I did. And then I brought my brother into the business because he does web design and development. And then I got the bright idea that we should move to India and open up a company there because all of our people were freelancers in India. And I was like, well, if we just go to India, we can, pay more and pay less and get more. Right. We can watch them, and they'll just work for us. They'll be our full-time employees. And I was back in the U.S. and my brother was there running the company, and we were told we were going to get a shakedown from the police. That's just kind of how it goes. And there's a knock on the door, and it's the police, and they want to see our business papers. And my brother gives them the papers, and they say, these are the wrong papers. Mm-hmm. And he's like, okay, how much do you want? And instead of asking for a bribe, they put handcuffs on him and threw him in jail. Mm-hmm. And So he's talking to the chief of police, and the chief of police is like, these could be the right papers. I don't know. So you have two choices. You can leave town tomorrow, or you can sit in jail and wait for the magistrate to come, and the magistrate will sort it out. And my brother goes, well, when does the magistrate come? And the chief of police goes, I don't know. And so my brother goes, I think I'll leave town tomorrow. So runs back to the office, and the building we were renting was the office on the first floor, and there was apartments on the second floor. So we get Christian out of India, and my brother, and we find out from our neighbors, they were renting a very similar thing where they had the business on the first floor and apartments on the second floor. We find out as soon as he left, the police come in and they took all of our stuff, all of our computers, all of our furniture, the generator, that whole thing. And the landlord had a new tenant in 3 days later. And because it was a mixed use space, we had a 6-month deposit, and we just paid the next month's rent. So the landlord got 7 months worth of rent, got a tenant that they wanted, and we kitted out the IT department of the local police station.
Nice.
So we don't have any employees. We're hemorrhaging clients. And my brother goes, well, I can take these 4 clients because he does web design development. I can take these 4 and I can work them. And I don't do any coding. And we had just started doing SEO because I had heard about this thing called SEO. And I was like, we could charge like $100, maybe $200 a month. And, because we built these websites and the people like us. Well, we'd hired some guys to do the SEO and they're gone. And so that I could pay the rent next month, I had to learn SEO that day. And figure it out and keep those clients. And then it turned out I was pretty good at it, and kept those clients, got more clients. And then I met my current business partner, and we decided let's start an agency. And so we actually worked together for about 1.5 years before we met. He spent his time between Australia and Germany. And so we started the agency. We instantly became an international agency, because he was in Germany and I was in the US, and we opened our office in Australia, and we started getting international clients where we get companies in Germany, companies in the US, companies in Australia. And
it could be more perfect, right? I mean, it seems like everything's like right there, international quickly.
Yeah. Well, it looks really sexy when you say we have offices in San Francisco, Berlin, Melbourne, even though it's just like the 2 of us.
Right.
But it looked good. And it grew and grew and grew. And then out of that came our other ventures. So PageOptimizer Pro, which is on Page Tool. We used it for our agency. We built it for us, and I showed it to some SEOs, and I was like, would you like this? You think this is cool? And they're like, oh my God, yes. And so we went from kind of Google Sheets internally to writing a Python script, and then actually taking it into a SaaS. And then we started Internet Marketing Gold, which is where my courses are. And I run tests on Google's algorithm. I actually have a US patent on seeing if something is or is not a ranking factor in Google. And through that knowledge, I've run over 400 tests on Google's algorithm to see what is working and what is going on. And that's also what we do in the group, is we run tests on the algorithm to see what is happening when we can figure some stuff out. So that's kind of the journey. It seems a lot more linear when you tell the story, but in the moment,
but I mean,
a little more up and down.
Right. It's not right. So as an entrepreneur, I know that. I mean, when you look at it, that you have a very interesting story, right? A wild story, from the deal in India, and then joining up. But I mean, that's what entrepreneurship's all about, right? The ups and downs, the ebbs, the flows, and just embracing the journey along the way. And sometimes you get in hot situations, you're like you said, how did I get here? Right. But then there's other days, man, where you feel like you conquered the world, and you reach the top of the mountain, but dude, it's never the top, right? Because there's always somewhere else you can go. There's always more that you can do in technology, algorithms, and the SEO game is ever changing. But man, when you stay in it, like your team has, and you have, and you're one of the speakers for SEO. I mean, and somebody that travels around and talks it, lives and breathes it. I mean, it's one of those things that even when it's changing, it's probably like getting a new shirt for you, right? Because it's exciting, right? To learn, okay, this is where it's going now. Let's embrace it.
Yeah. when Google does an update, we're pretty happy about that. That's a good time in our lives.
Exactly, because that means, right, you get to do some updates to services or things change, and now, hey, you got to take your clients in the right direction. So with that said, let's talk a little bit about SEO and some of the things where, when I got in the game in digital marketing, one time everybody's saying SEO is dead. Let's talk about SEO and how people actually think, Google actually works versus how it actually works. I mean, there's
Sure.
always, there's everybody saying everything, but what is the real truth, my brother?
Well, the biggest thing is that Google is not a person. Google can't read. The Google is an algorithm, and that's part of a talk that I give, is that Google's algorithm is an algorithm, and it's powerful. It's amazing. It's one of the most amazing things ever put together. But at the end of the day, it's still an algorithm, and the idea is that it's not making any value judgments. People will put up what they think is good content, and they'll say, and everyone's had this same experience: this piece of content is better than everything that is ranking.
Right.
Those are just objectively, like, I've been in the industry longer than those guys. I know this is better source. This is just better. And Google isn't ranking it. It's because Google isn't reading it. Google isn't like, oh yeah, this is a nice piece of content. Google is actually doing math. And so while you certainly need to write good content because you need people to convert, you need them to do what you want them to do when they come to your page. But in order to rank, it's a completely separate concept. And you need to give the algorithm the math that it wants. And that's kind of the key. And once you do that, then you can rank very well. So if you can let go of the idea that Google is human, or that Google is making value judgments, or that Google is reading, you can go a very long way. I think another thing that people don't realize is they really try to get too clever with SEO. They really try to out clever Google. The secret is hiding in plain sight. Google shows you the sites that it likes, and it likes those sites for one of three reasons: the on-page SEO, the off-page SEO, or a combination of the two. And really, people try to really get clever with Google, but you can't teach Google anything new. When you have your particular term that you like, you search that term and then see what Google is rewarding. What type of page? Is this a single product page? Is this a category page? Is this a long form article? And if you want to try to come in with a single product page and Google is ranking long form articles, you're not going to do very well. You need to give Google the page that is expecting. And in doing so, then you want to do your counts for your target keyword, its variations, contextual terms, and you want to put them in very specific places, because Google isn't looking at a page as a whole either. Google's looking at very specific areas on the page, and those areas have different weight or different importance. And so, for example, your target keyword, the thing that you want to rank for the most, you really need to get it into the most important places, and that would be your title tag, your H1, which is the title that humans see, in your paragraph tags, and also in the URL. Those are the top 4 places, and they've been the top 4 for quite a long time. And the dirty secret of SEO is if you put your keyword in those 4 places, you've probably done 60% of SEO. Really? But people really try to get really, really clever with it. And they're like, well, let's try to switch things up. And no, not at all. Just stick with the basics on that and get your keyword in that spot. And then, the rest of it is your variations and other things like that in other signal areas, such as your subheadings, your H2s and H3s and that kind of stuff. Nice.
So what you just mentioned is some of the current best practices to give some of the content the best chance of ranking quickly, or is that just something that, that's something that's just standard across the board that you just need to knock out? Like you said, cover 60% of SEO for you.
And it's been that way for quite some time. And okay. I don't see it changing anytime soon, because when you think about Google, there are changes and there are updates. But if you think about a bell curve, the stuff that changes are that stuff on the fringe, that 10, 15% on either side of the bell curve where people are trying to game the system. That's what Google really kind of tweaks. But that core stuff doesn't change very often. And if you think about it, the only people that complain about Google results are SEOs. Right. The people that use Google love it. That's why they've got 110% market share. It's because people can go to Google, they can type something in, and they're going to get results that are fairly reliable. They can find the answer that they're looking for, that product that they need. As a result, there's no reason for Google to change the algorithm that much. And the core part of the algorithm is the text on your page and then off-page signals. And that has been since pretty much the beginning. So while there have been tweaks here and there, most of those tweaks are on the fringe. But if you kind of stick with those core concepts, you can do very, very well. And you don't even have to really worry about updates, because if you stay within those core concepts, you're not going to get in any trouble, and you're not going to go outside of Google's guidelines.
Nice. So through all the SEO tests that I'm sure you've ran and conducted over the years, what actually inspired you to build an SEO tool such as PageOptimizer Pro? Because again, I know for some people that don't live and breathe it, right? And they're like, oh, I got to focus on SEO. They can get overwhelmed. And they have no idea, and they're probably listening to the gurus that are trying to give them this trick or tactic that, they really are just misleading them to some point, or at that time they're thinking it's actually the next thing. But what led you to actually creating PageOptimizer Pro, man?
Well, as I said before, we needed it. We were doing things by hand, and that's tedious. And you do that one time, and you realize, well, this is terrible. But then we realized we could throw stuff into a Google Sheet, and then we built out from there. And then we realized that Google Sheets has limitations, and that we should actually be using something like Python. And our CTO, she and I were working on a tool. I created the algorithm to do the math for finding not just what your competitors are doing, but how you can get an edge on them. Sometimes an edge is doing what they're doing. Sometimes an edge is doing a little bit more than what they've done. And sometimes it's doing a little bit less than what they've done. And so through a lot of testing, kind of finding what that algorithm is. So then I wrote that algorithm, and then she was like, I think I can learn Python. And in about 2 weeks, she learned Python and wrote that algorithm into a script. And then we threw that on the back end of our agency website and just gave it away for free. You put in your keyword and your email, and we emailed you a spreadsheet. Nice. And then once things got a little more complex beyond what she could code, and also that we were putting some strain on our server with everybody hitting our website. Right. That's when we moved it into the cloud, into a SaaS tool, and brought in an actual developer to develop it out. And so that was 2018. Okay. Like the very end of 2017, and we gave it away for free for about 7 months. And then I think in June of 2018, we started taking payment. We just were doing like $1 every time you wanted to run the tool. Right. About 7 months later, that's when we switched to a subscription model. We still have a credit model for our lower packages, but then switched up to a subscription, and just been growing since. It's been the most fun thing I've ever worked on. It's been an absolute blast. And through all the highs and lows and dealing with customer support, which is just the worst. But it's still fun, even in spite of that.
100%. So, I mean, as a non-developer, right at the time, I mean, I guess maybe you can add that to your title now. To a degree, right? But coming up with PageOptimizer Pro, I mean, and as somebody that was a non-developer and leaning on other people, right? That hey, I need you to learn Python outside of Google Sheets, and then let's take it a step further with whatever technology comes that can make PageOptimizer Pro even better. I mean, how fun has that journey been for you to date? I mean, starting in 2018.
It's been the challenge has been great because, each time we're doing something, we're learning about technology we don't know anything about. Right. What can Python do? I have no clue. How does AWS work? I understand the concept of a server, but how does this work? Because we have the tool is broken up into several different servers. This server does this thing and this server does that thing. And so, just figuring out how any of that fits together. Yeah. And what can and can't be done, what is possible and what isn't possible. And at the same time, while we're developing that out, obviously Google's changing. And so we have to update our algorithm, and we have to keep track of things, or we have to continue to run tests. So while that's all going on, kind of just building the tool, we're also then modifying as we go. And then you realize that the internet is a big place. And there are a lot of websites on there, and a lot of crappy websites on there that have terrible, terrible code. And they're like, well, Google can read my site. And I was like, well, Google is $1 trillion company. We are not. So trying to write our code so that we can fix or understand when people have terribly written code. That was a problem I was not anticipating. We run into it today. People are like, the tool's not reading this. And you get on their website, and you're like, your site is awful. Yeah. And what do you want me to do? But but we try, we try then to see if we can't get our crawler to figure something out so that we can at least, run their pages. But I had no idea that was going to be an issue at all. So every time we want to do something, there are new problems, new things to understand, figuring out how to scale and grow, and figuring out crawling technology and all that kind of stuff. It's been just a blast. It's been a lot of work, but a lot of fun.
Yeah, but just in that, what you just said, I mean, that's entrepreneurship at its finest, right? There's always hurdles. There's always obstacles in your way. There's ways you got to learn how to pivot, things you got to learn how to bypass, new systems you might have to learn to make more things efficient. And so that story right there is awesome. But man, I can't be more excited to jump into Page Pro and do a live demo and possibly help one of my co-hosts' website pages. Let's see what we can do, man.
Something I was thinking about when you're talking there is that as entrepreneurs, I think we all have a form of ADD where we really just I need something new. I can't. I need a new problem. And I think that's why a lot of people are attracted to something like digital marketing or SEO, because every time you step in, there's a new problem. You're here and you need to get to there, and every website is different. Every problem is different. All KPIs are different. There's different things you need to do. And it allows you to focus on something new and something brand new. And I think we need that as entrepreneurs. And in the same way with Pop, as we develop it, it's like, that's all something new. And so it's able to kind of keep my entrepreneurial ADD going and satisfied.
And when you bring that up, to me, it's like the shiny object syndrome, but you also need to know how to fine tune that, right? And it needs to be that shiny object that's in your path, because a lot of the shiny objects can get you off and derailed, and you're just like in a sinkhole now. You're like, well, how did I get here? And what am I doing right now? Wasting time.
Exactly.
But again, it's one of those things. It's like, if you're going to chase the shiny object, make sure it's along that linear path for you, so you don't have such a derail and you can jump back on course, right?
I think 100% right.
All right. I'll pass it over to you, Kyle, and let you.
Sounds good. I'll share my screen and we'll see how we do. All right. Let me know when you can see that.
See it crystal clear.
All right. So I ran this earlier because obviously running a tool for 2 minutes is not terribly enthralling podcast or video material. But to get to this point, you just put in your domain for the website that you want to. Projects are just organized by domains. If you're in a situation where you don't have a domain, then maybe it's a completely brand new thing, but you're working on your content, you can put in a dummy domain, and that's fine. Just whatever the project's going to be called. Gotcha. But then once you want to put in a page, you want to go over to Pro. 98% of people will be on the Pro side of things. And this is where Pop does most of the heavy lifting for you, choosing your competitors, choosing your terms, et cetera. And then once in here, we just have a one-page form. You put in your keyword, choose your language, your location where you're at, and then the URL you're trying to optimize, and then give it a name. We have some advanced options where you can hit secondary keywords outside, say, your primary, or we have some other advanced options where if you're on our highest plan, our agency plan, we have Google's NLP API if you need that. We do heat analysis, which is proprietary, where we go through and find heat signals if you haven't built a page yet, et cetera. Or like some people like to work in source code, so you can do that instead of a URL. But it's pretty straightforward. One page, you click go, about 2.5 minutes later, you get a report. And what that report looks like is this right here. So the idea is that we've got a summary. So the keyword we're looking at for this page is product development company. The word count, so the target from your competitor is about 2,100 words. These are longer-ish pages. On what Google is currently rewarding. You have about 833, so we have some room. We can add a lot of content to this page, which is good because if you notice the score is 15.9%. That score is based on these recommendations. So Pop has actually more data than you could possibly want. And that's over here on this custom side where we give you complete control over the input and output. Most people don't need that. But what we do is we take all that data and then we actually have another layer of algorithm, and then we produce these recommendations. It's kind of like having an SEO looking over your shoulder saying, this is what I would do. And then you get to this point. So the score here is based off of have you followed these recommendations. And so the more you get in, the more you follow the recommendations, the higher your score will go. And the idea is that we've got things broken up into different sections. Again, like I mentioned, those top areas where you want to put your keyword, that's kind of what we've taken out into here. So your search engine title is your title tag, sometimes known as the meta title. And these are the terms you want to get in here. And the idea is that these are the important terms, such as your target keyword. And you want to get your important terms into this range, using them between 2 and 4 times. And currently the current count is 0. Page title is your H1. Same thing, where that's the range you want to get into, and that's the current count. Your subheadings, those are your H2s and H3s. Those are the different sections on a page generally. And again, low on that count. And then the main content, this is your paragraph tags, the meat of the site. And we're low there as well, which is good because we have a lot of words that we can add to the page. So getting these numbers up really aren't too tricky. One thing I noticed was, so with the search engine title and the page title being 0. So I went over to the page and I noticed that the title, so this is your title tag, is just Stoke product development. So this is the most important place to put a keyword, would be your title tag. And so getting that term in there would be mission critical. That's something you definitely want to do. The other thing that was interesting is that when I went over to headers, there's no H1 on the page. There's actually no page title. The H1 would be the second most important place to put a keyword. There are a lot of H2s, and that's from like the examples of the product development, but there's actually no title. So these are actually incredibly easy fixes, and getting the target term in there, and then some of the other recommendations where Pop is recommending an edge to add some other terms. That's actually going to do a lot of heavy lifting, which is great. Like, so even though there's work to do, the score in Pop will jump up a lot. And I don't think this page is currently ranking for the term. Right. But doing those things, I think you would probably crack the top 100. Like, you'd get in the game.
Yeah, 100%.
And be in a good spot.
So, and not to cut you off, but I love
no.
And what I'm picking up on this, right? I love how products, when you start using a tool and it has a red, amber, and green status, and then also, like, it seemed like all of those, so the important term range 2 to 4 are, and it lets you know the current count that you got, as well as so will it pick up on how many H2s I have on a page? Like, so if Andrew starts using it and we correct that, it tells you how many, like, current count, and
that's right.
How he needs to bring it in. That's awesome.
While there were all those H2s, like, they're actually the tags on the page, they're not using the terms.
Right.
So, like, technically speaking, like, the important term count here for your subheadings, your H2s, is 7 to 12. Technically speaking, you could put those all in one H2. Obviously, that's not practical. But between all the H2s that are there, this actually wouldn't be very hard to get these counts to where they need to be, because there's so many H2s already on the page. Okay. It wouldn't be a problem at all. One other thing that we have that a lot of tools don't have is NLP, natural language processing. Now, our more expensive packages give you access to Google's NLP API if you really want it. We have an additional NLP library, natural language processing, that we pull in, and this is available to all plans. So what we found with natural language processing, this is like the hot thing in SEO right now, and people are really into it. But what we found is that I'm not sure that it helps push your rank, but we have found that pages that use NLP terms index faster. So it kind of gets you going a lot faster. And so we do recommend getting them on your page, the ones that are appropriate, of course.
Right.
Now, from time to time, you'll see a term like a competitor's name, for example, might slip in, and you don't necessarily want your competitor name in there or being kind of counted. And so what we have is this remove feature where you just click to remove, and we take it out for you. And then it actually recalibrates. So you don't have to rerun the entire tool. You can simply remove those terms that you don't need. And if you made a mistake, you can obviously recover it, and it adjusts your counts. So it'll just like the count total that you need for this and what you need to shoot for.
That's awesome.
The other thing that we have that I really like are content prompts. And so if you come over to this area, sometimes people are like, okay, I see what kind of title I'm supposed to have, but what should I do? Like, what should that actually be? And so we pull in your competitor titles, so you can actually get inspiration on like how you can get those terms in. And so we pull in the competitor titles from the sites that we ran. And you can see, for example, product development companies, product development company, product design company. Those are your top 3, and those are all pretty close to what your target term is. And so you can see how it makes sense to use your target phrase in your title. But what's great is that a lot of the competitors aren't actually using it, which is fantastic. So if you were to use the term, you're probably getting an edge on them.
Right.
This is probably a place that you can really get into things. Here in the page structure, we give some examples of what other H tags should be. And this is just to be informative on what type of page you might need to have. Like, how meaty does this page need to be? Having these tags on the page, they're not necessarily ranking factors, but it's the kind of thing that'll help you create a page that will do better.
Right.
The other 2 sections that we have are your related keywords. These are the related searches. So when you do your search and you scroll to the bottom, and they're the related searches, if you see terms on here that you like, you can win these terms by properly optimizing for your primary keyword or your target keyword. And so if you see something you really like, though, those are excellent for sections on the page. So our page is light in word count. We can use these for sections. And what's going to happen is it's going to help our counts, because if we answer these questions or we provide the information needed for these particular related keywords, we'll do well. That's going to help us increase our counts significantly. The other thing we have are related questions. So we look for the people also ask. We have a couple other ways to create questions as well, but these are fantastic for sections. And the other two is if you optimize for these, you can also win that real estate. The people also ask real estate, where you're getting your site on page 1 more times. So not just for, say, the target keyword, but you could also perhaps win these related questions. These are excellent sections. These are excellent for H2s and getting on your page. And again, in a situation where where it's a good idea to increase our word count and also get all of our other counts up, these are great. How much do product development companies charge? That's probably a question that people have, like, how expensive is this? And I think on the page, there is a section that says it's like 5 to 10K or something like that for an MVP. So all you need to do is like just change that section to this type of question, add a little bit more to it probably, and then you're good to go. What do product development companies do? The page already kind of answers that, but it can just be structured, just like tweaks on the structure, get that in as an H2, tweak the text just a little bit, and then again, you're really going to be good to go. But yeah, that's the tool in a nutshell. As I said, on the custom side, so this is where if you need to really get into what's going on in the data, we really provide more data than you possibly need. But some SEOs want this. Some SEOs want complete control over their situation. And the other thing we do too is that we even allow for adjustments. Let's say, so this strategy is based on all your competitors. Let's say you can choose focus competitors. I just want to focus on these 3. We can give you those recommendations. And then we can adjust by approach, a regular approach. Like this is a normal situation. We need to be more conservative. We just start slower. We give conservative recommendations. We can be a little more aggressive, so we can give aggressive recommendations. So things are scaling up. Hyper aggressive. We needed to rank yesterday, and it doesn't matter if we blow up this page. Those recommendations are there as well. And so the recommendations change based on like your specific situation. Most of the time you don't need this. The vast majority of the time, what's in the pro side is all you need. And I honestly think, like in our own agency, we start on the pro side and we get up to about an 80, 85. We see how things go. Then we push it up to maybe 90 plus, see how things go. And we still think there's room for improvement with the on page. Then we come over and now we're looking at the granular kind of nitty gritty things, but that's, a 2-month kind of process. But where we start, where we do most of the work is on the side, on the pro side, where it's just very straightforward. Just put these terms in these places.
So you mentioned your team actually utilizes this in your own company.
We're making a killing with it too.
Oh, I'm sure, man. Yeah. I mean, and that's awesome, right? I mean, is it something that, and this is for the HV SEO company, right?
Yeah. So within our own agency, we use our own tool.
Nice, man. And so that helps you just get an advantage even more so, like you said, making a killing, especially being international or whatever you do. You probably have clients from all over now. And then it just helps you streamline the process. And it's almost like if you hired, and I'm sure you have individuals that do certain tasks along the way. But I mean, it's almost, I'm not saying dummy proof, but I mean, it's like laid out for you, man. This is like extremely incredible and awesome when I'm looking at this because, I was in the SEO game for a little while. And I still do it from time to time for companies, like just the basic stuff, like, getting stuff on their, the meta descriptions, the meta titles and all that stuff, and just helping them with all of that just on a basic level. But man, I can see how this can really take your game up to another level because it also helps you realize what other companies aren't focusing on, or it helps you find those holes that you can like fill the bucket with. And you're like, man, like I can gain a huge advantage. And like you said, with just fixing some of the things from just on a basic level and looking at it, he could jump into the top 100 and be in the game now, right?
Exactly. Just 10 minutes worth of work, you're there. 30 minutes worth of work, now you're pushing up, and now you're really doing well. The thing that's nice, or what the tool is designed to do, though, is that it's not just looking at averages. And we're not just giving page one averages. What's happening is that there's an algorithm that's going on that's actually looking for edges. So the whole goal of the tool is to help you do better on page so that you can actually beat your competitors. That's what we're trying to accomplish. So this isn't for everybody. Not everybody looks at this and goes, yay, some people get a little bit turned off by all the numbers. But I think if you can work past that and approach it, from the idea that write the content out and maybe do your SEO edits second. I think even as you said, somebody that's not an SEO can get a huge edge because really we're providing enterprise data. Yeah, is what this is, but we do it not at enterprise level prices because we want the little guy, to compete with the huge SEO agency, that they can take them on and they can actually win. They can do it. This allows you, or the small business owner that's doing it on their own, or the entrepreneur that's hustling. They're hustling and they're going. We want to give them that opportunity to get the data that the big guys have, and also present it in a way where they can implement it, use it, and it'll be effective.
So, what would you say? And I'm looking at this. within my digital marketing agency, and I'm looking right here because I mean, I know what a lot of this stuff means because I've done it myself at some point in time. But as a business owner myself and an entrepreneur, somebody that's in the digital marketing space and has built websites, has done things for clients, you know, all the small companies, they look, when you build them a website, they want to go light on content. Like, what would you say to that? Because when I'm sitting here looking at like current word count, 833, target is 2,100, and then you start working for these companies and they want you to build a website, and then they, you know, whether they want to create the content, you create the content, they come back and it's like 300 words on the page, and it's more pictures than it is anything else. And you're just like, dude, like, do you ever want to rank for this site? You know, and as a business owner, as somebody that builds websites, sometimes, you know, it's frustrating, but also have at some point, you got to say, hey, I'm going to educate you. If you want it, great, because this is going to help you. If you don't, I wouldn't recommend it. But sometimes you have to deliver what the client wants, right?
Sure. The thing that I have a couple thoughts on that, because we run into that all the time. First of all, like most people, they design their site first, and then they think about the text that they're going to on. But usually their baby is the homepage. You know, that's the most beautiful thing. And what's nice about that is rarely do you ever want to optimize your homepage for a term. Your homepage is your business card. It's the kind of thing where you tell Google what type of company you are. So your organization schema or your local business schema will go on that page. You're going to have your address, you're going to have your phone numbers, your contact stuff. So really that's fine. And the homepage, generally speaking, is not optimized for a particular term other than just your brand. And I think that's fine. You should just kind of focus on that. The internal pages, you usually have a little more leeway, because those are often, in a design sense, the homepage is pretty, you know, and has all the stuff. And then when you get into the internal pages, there's usually more room for text. And so that's what we've been focusing on. Like, we're going to build these pages out. But the thing that you try to show people is, hey, look, all your competitors are about 2,100 words. That's a lot of text. We need to compete with them. And if we come in with 300 words, we're bringing a knife to a gunfight. Right. You know, we're just not going to do it. You know, it's just not going to happen. So you try to show them the sites that are winning, why they're winning, and then hope that they get on board from there. But when we, when we pre-qualify clients, it's not just the on page for the target page, but we really want to get a lot of content on your site. We want to, you know, like, so for example, those questions, sometimes there are these related questions and they're really good, but they don't quite fit with the target page. It's like, it's in the ballpark, and people are definitely asking that question, but we don't want to put it on the target page because it takes things off center. It doesn't quite work with conversions or the flow, but it's great content. Well, these are fantastic to build out supporting pages where you just answer this question. You know, you have this question in your title tag in your H1, you just answer. It's like 500 or 600 words, not a lot of content. And then you link it up to your target page. What happens is that this page starts to rank quickly on its own. And what you'll find is that sites that rank for more keywords do better. So we want to do a content strategy where we're putting out this content that is going to rank quickly and start to bring in keywords that we're ranking for, impressions, but also traffic, the right kind of traffic. And now you have people coming to the site, and you just kind of create a little engine of good with all these pieces of content. So when we pre-qualify clients, something that we mention is that we are content heavy. We're content forward because your site is the only thing you have complete control over. Right. You don't have control over your external signals. We have control over the site, so we know we can dial this in, and this is going to do our heavy lifting. This is also completely white hat. You can never get in trouble with creating good content. You know, when you're creating stuff that is answering questions that people have, you're always going to be within Google's good graces. And as you build out this content, what happens is you start getting a lot of clicks and a lot of traffic, a lot of impressions, and you really didn't do a lot of SEO. This is mostly keyword research to create these extra pages. And so what happens is that your site gains more authority. You become a stronger site, and you become less reliant upon external signals. So if Google changes anything, there's an update, Google decides it doesn't like something anymore. Google doesn't penalize you, by the way. Google just drops you down to where you belong. You know, the Google is giving you a boost and they're moving you up. You know, they're moving up, and all they did is they just took away the boost. And so it's not a penalty. It's just, this is where your site belongs. So you need to do something to build up your site that is not reliant on external things. And you do that through content. And so that's what we talk about. So if we are then talking with a potential new client. They're like, we just can't create any pages. Okay, so we've had clients with websites that they just can't create a page. It has to go through like 9 developers. It has to go through legal. It has to go through this. And I'm like, well, we want to crank out about 30 pieces a month. And they're like, that would take a year to get 30 pieces. And we're like, we're not a good fit. So people have to be content ready when they work with our agency, because that's what we want to do. Because we want to build evergreen sites that are going to not be susceptible to Google updates. They're going to decrease volatility. They're going to grow, and they're going to become very strong. That's what we want to build, but that takes content. So
yeah, for sure.
People just have to be on board with that to begin with.
Yeah. So I guess you're relying on the company to produce the content, right? No matter whatever.
We can produce the content. That's fine. I mean, we have a content creation team. We can work either way. That doesn't matter. But the name of the game is speed. 100%. Like, can we get this going quickly? Because we want to post this on a schedule. And we want to get this probably by month 2. We want to start cranking this stuff out and getting it on the site. And then which way that needs to be done. We often, I don't know how many clients have said like, we write our own content. We're good. And then 5, 6 pieces in there, like, can you guys do this?
Yeah, exactly.
We can. We're prepared for that, but we can go either way. Like if they have their own content team, that's fantastic, because we'll just do the research then and say, okay, here's your list of 100 terms. Pick the ones you like. It doesn't even matter, and they'll all be good, and then we can go from there.
Nice. That's awesome, man. I do this tool right here. I mean, I know you said some people might not get excited, but when I saw it and you started and I'm only seeing it a little bit from just one page, I could just imagine getting in this and just playing all day, because I'm like, okay, whoa, I can make a huge difference, with somebody, because I mean, it gives it to you, man. And that's awesome too, because it seems like you can be a single, a mom and pop store that can leverage this, or an agency that leverages this, right? I mean, it seems like this right here is what SEOs are looking for. And if you don't know about PageOptimizer Pro, you need to contact Kyle or get on this and figure it out. Research it, man. This thing's where it's at. I love it.
Well, cheers. I appreciate that. I think also, we've got a discount code for your listeners too.
Yeah.
What that discount code is, I have no idea.
Yeah, it should be That Entrepreneur Life, but I'll verify that. We'll make sure that it gets put in the show notes.
Sure thing.
I did view it yesterday because Vera asked me to make sure we got all that stuff. But we'll make sure that gets in the show notes. I'll make sure it actually pops up on the screen right now when I'm talking about it, right?
Nice. Perfect.
So we'll have the audio version, and for the individuals that didn't actually get to watch this portion because you're just listening to a podcast, obviously you could jump over to our YouTube channel and watch the live demo, as well as our Facebook page. We'll have all this streaming everywhere, man. So people that are our followers can definitely see what PageOptimizer Pro is, and check out Kyle as well, man.
The last little thing that I'd mention is that I do a weekly workshop. It's free. And I walk through kind of how to use POP. But then at the end of it, I answer any and all questions that people have. And those could be questions about using POP generally or specifically. But then I answer any and all SEO questions as well. And I stay on as long as people are asking questions. And even if somebody isn't a POP user, they're more than welcome to join in. And if they have SEO questions, I answer them.
Awesome.
So yeah, if anybody, they just go to the website for Page Optimizer Pro, scroll to the bottom. There's a link for the workshop down there, and they can join once. They can join many times. It's all completely fine.
Nice, man. Well, Kyle, man, I appreciate your time today. I think that's a wrap for this episode. And I want to thank you for taking the time into your day all the way over there and joining me and adding value to our podcast, brother.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, man, it's really been a pleasure, Kyle. Thank you all so much for listening to That Entrepreneur Life. To learn more about what Kyle's working on SEO-wise, check out the SEO agency, hvseo.co, as well as his SEO tool at PageOptimizer.pro. If you like what you heard today, please subscribe to our podcast, and don't forget to download our free ebook about the success mindset at thatentrepreneurlife.com. Thanks for continuing to support what we do as entrepreneurs, and don't forget to join us next week for another episode of That Entrepreneur Life.
Thanks for listening to That Entrepreneur Life podcast. Be sure to visit thatentrepreneurlife.com to join the conversation, access our show notes, and discover our fantastic bonus content. Don't forget to join us next week for another episode as we continue to add value. Until next time.